Do unicorns exist in nature? They certainly don't in equids, but they may in deer. And the reason for this is a unique mutation called unicorn antler syndrome. Is rather than the antlers appearing at either side of the deer's head, they appear as a point in the middle of its forehead or in the middle of its skull. Now, this is particularly seen in roe deer, and there was a case in 2014 in Slovenia. Now, what they found in this particular population is due to potentially an injury or a genetic deformity or a mutation, this could have likely contributed to the formation of effectively a unideer, a deer where rather than the antlers being. Now, this unique phenotypic display, so rather than the antlers appearing on the left and right of the skull and having that singular antler at the center of the skull, develops into quite an adaptation. Now, the reason for this is, for those who aren't aware, deer rut, and when they rut, they basically collide their antlers together and they try to compete with each other to effectively dominate. Now, the difference is when you have an antler at the center of your skull rather than at the side, when they collide together, that antler forms, so it effectively acts as a spear. So when the two deer collide, this antler enables it to pierce potentially the vulnerable spots of the deer or potentially even the skull. And as a result of that, what happens is that deer then goes on to dominate in other forms of competition with other males of its species and enabling it to mate more successfully with other deer. And what you then enabling it to be more successful with the does around it. And what you would have as a result of that is a greater representation of its genes in the population. Now that is a biodiversity question because obviously it becomes more successful if it is. So if it is a genetic mutation, you're more likely to see it presented in its offspring and potentially more likely to see it as a successful trait. Now, one of the challenges that this particular deer had is we don't know how successful this mutation may have been because it was found by a hunter, it was shot, and as a result, and due to this, it was only lightly successful rather than potentially as prolific as it could have been and having a dominance within this population of deer for a sustained period where other deer just simply couldn't compete with. So a question that I have for you is, was the decision to cull correct in terms of trying to preserve biodiversity within the deer population? What is your view? Now, that's unicorn antler syndrome. If you have any other questions, then please drop a comment. I'm more than happy to try to respond. And equally, this is just an example of some of the mysteries that we can see in the scientific and natural world. So if you want to follow on for more of the spooky science series, then please like and follow for more. Thank you very much for listening.